Man, 2015 already. Honestly, it felt like 2014 had only just started, and yet here we are at the start of 2015. 2014 was a grand year for video games. Several console sellers finally hit the market, Nintendo killed who knows how many wallets this year, I got a new i7 laptop and a Wii U, which definitely helped in increasing my gaming library, and I played some absolutely stellar video games for the first time this year, as you can tell by the fact that I'm making this list. Now I know that many other people in this community have already done this topic, and there will probably be more soon, but I can guarantee that I've played some quite interesting games for the first time this year, so hopefully it'll be varied enough. On a side note, this list was hard to order. There were a lot of games I could have put on here, so making a top 10 was no easy task. Either way, it's time to look back at my gaming highlights of 2014, so sit back, enjoy, and let us commence! Well, this feels awfully recent for me. I wonder why that is. Judging the fact that I just made a collab countdown talking about the tracks from this majestic spin-off series, it was pretty obvious that Mario Kart 8 would make it onto this list. This game single-handedly skyrocketed the Wii U out of the pit of poor sales and onto the market of success, and understandably so. But that's not why this game's on the list. That would be because this game is one of the best games in the entire Mario Kart series, if not the best. Gameplay-wise, it's what you would expect from Mario Kart, but add some extra content to spice things up. For starters, the bikes from Mario Kart Wii return, alongside the newly added ATVs, and the underwater and gliding mechanics from Mario Kart 7 also make a comeback. But besides these returning systems, Mario Kart 8 also introduces zero-gravity sections, which don't really change the gameplay all that much, but really add an extra level of creativity to the tracks. This brings me to the tracks, and I can honestly say that Mario Kart 8 might have the best track lineup in the entire franchise. Little to none of the new tracks are stale, cheap, or boring, and the retro tracks present in this game have easily the best makeover that the retro tracks have ever gotten. Some of these tracks are barely recognizable to their original counterparts. And even once boring tracks like Mario Circuit from Super Circuit and Donut Plains 3 from the original Super Mario Kart are made that much more interesting. Also, while the game doesn't add that many new power-ups, it did add probably the handiest one yet, the Blue Shell Destroying Super Horn. If I were to make a few complaints about this game, it would be some of the new characters, namely Baby Rosalina and Pink Gold Peach, and what they did to the battle mode. I'm sorry Nintendo, but the tracks do not make good arenas. That being said, this is still one of the biggest highlights on the Wii U, and with the recent DLC pack that came out, and another one set for release in May, it's safe to say that this game won't be picking up dust on your shelf anytime soon. Unless you hate Mario Kart for some reason. You want to hear something sad? There's this guy who claims he's an RPG fanatic, yet he only really got into the Tales series this previous year. What a nerd! Did I really just diss myself? In my defense, it's not like I never had an interest in the series. Heck, I actually got Tales of the Abyss on the 3DS back in 2012, but it wasn't until this year that I truly invested time into it. However, I still did play it in 2012, so I'm not counting it. Instead, let's talk about the other Tales game I got this year, Tales of Symphonia. Despite the fact that I much prefer Abyss, Tales of Symphonia is still a really good RPG, and it's understandable why this game is a fan favorite, even though the Tales games for the most part just get better and better. The story is relatively basic to the point that it does get rather predictable, but it still does a good job at telling a narrative and providing some very well-written characters, especially your party members. But easily the best part of this game is, well, the gameplay. Tales of Symphonia, much like the other Tales games, is very much unlike any other RPG out there. By that I mean it plays kind of like a hack and slash, with real-time combat, unlockable moves and skills for each character, and even a combo system. It's a really unique gameplay style that I've honestly never experienced before I played any of the Tales games. And even better, this game has co-op! That's right, you can actually have friends take control of the party members and fight alongside you in battle. That is, if you have any friends that are into RPGs like you. Hey, it's not my fault my friends would rather play Smash Brothers than Tales of Symphonia. The presentation of this game is another thing to be praised. For the GameCube, this animation is very well done, and for some reason it gives me a very Harvest Moon vibe. If Harvest Moon was a hack and slash RPG hybrid. And while the soundtrack is good, it's not the most memorable part of the game, especially when compared to future Tales games. That being said, Symphonia is still a great game, and even though I consider Abyss to be the stronger of the two for a multitude of reasons, Symphonia is still a worthwhile game if you can find it at a good price. One recurring theme you're going to notice on this list is games from franchises I had played from before but with little experience prior, as seen with the previous entry. And we're about to set foot in that situation yet again with the Kirby series. Before 2014, I had only played 2 Kirby games, the original Kirby's Dream Land on Game Boy, and the amazing co-op extravaganza that was Kirby's Return to Dream Land. This year, I got my hands on 2 Kirby games, Kirby's Adventure, and number 8 on this list, Kirby Triple Deluxe. I will admit that I wasn't necessarily excited for this game when it got announced, but when I finally bought it with some extra cash I had on me, I was sucked into the game almost immediately. I can't believe I just said that. Terrible puns aside, Triple Deluxe is actually quite a well-designed game. It plays very much like Return to Dream Land, just without the co-op, which could be either a major upgrade or a major drawback depending on how you and your friends play co-op. However, there are some extra changes added to the game that help make it stand out. For example, the game includes multiple new modes, like the rhythm platformer DDT's Drum Dash and the epic Kirby fighting game Kirby Fighters, both of which got their own eShop releases as solo games. And the game also introduces several new copy abilities, including the Archer, the Bell, the Circus, and my personal favorite of the new ones, the Beetle. But easily the biggest highlight in this game is the temporary power-up. Yeah, the super abilities didn't return unfortunately, but instead, we got something just as good. The Hypernova! This thing is devastating! Aside from these additions, Triple Deluxe also includes the norms we expect from a Kirby game. Great level design, a catchy soundtrack, and some really entertaining boss fights. It's overall a worthwhile experience. And because I can't think of a clever way to end this segment, here's a picture I made using the official Kirby site's Hypernova Maker. Ouch! Okay, moving on. Another recurring theme I noticed about the additions in my game library this year is that I happened to play a lot of indie games for the first time this year, such as Chronicles of a Dark Lord, Freedom Planet, Cave Story, Castle Crashers, and Skullgirls. And while many of them could have made it onto this list, only 2 of them did. For the first of these indie games, all I have to say is, can you dig it? Pretty sure you've heard a lot about this game lately. It's appeared on quite a few Games of 2014 lists already, and understandably so. Shovel Knight is easily one of the greatest indie games ever made. The game is crafted like a classic 8-bit platformer along the lines of Mega Man, Castlevania, and DuckTales. The latter especially, since I'm pretty sure Shovel Knight got his weapon from the same pogo stick company that made Scrooge's cane. And this isn't just for presentation. It keeps multiple traits expected from an NES title, including extreme levels of difficulty, fun level designs, extreme levels of difficulty, chiptune music composed by DuckTales Remastered's Jake Kaufman, extreme levels of difficulty, Robot Master-style boss fights against the 8 Knights of the Order of No Quarter. Oh, did I forget to mention extreme levels of difficulty? Okay, it's not Ninja Gaiden levels of hard, but it's definitely challenging. It also has so much content that even though it's relatively short, you'll find yourself coming back for more. Honestly, there's so much about Shovel Knight to love. So much heart and effort was put into this one game, it's absolutely astonishing. In this age where many games are rushed out with little to no soul put into them, it's amazing to see a game with this much love and time put into it. I could go on a whole tangent about how influential this game is and whatnot, but I'd rather not get sappy. Besides, others have already talked about the importance of this game in the video game world. Bottom line, if you haven't played Shovel Knight yet, I highly recommend it. It is definitely worth your time. I think I'm gonna need the flame shield for this one. Not gonna lie, it feels weird to have such a hyped up game like Super Smash Bros. 4 not even be in the top 5 on this list. In fact, I'm expecting at least one person in the comments to freak out about how Smash should be higher. But hey, it's my opinion. And while there were 5 other games I played this year that I preferred, Smash 4 is still a fantastic game. Believe it or not, it's actually the highest game on this list that came out in 2014. Sorry, Pokemon fans. Now on a gameplay standpoint, Smash 4 is very much like the previous installments. However, it does bring some variance to the system. For instance, both the 3DS and Wii U versions of Smash 4 twist up how Classic Mode works, Target Test has been replaced with Target Blast, and of course, the 3DS version Smash Run and the Wii U version Smash Tour have been introduced. But let's be honest, the part that pretty much every Smash fan can get excited for in this game is the roster. Smash 4 brings back a majority of Brawl's roster, and even brings back some Melee characters. But at the same time, it brings in some really awesome newcomers, such as Greninja from Pokemon X and Y, Palutena and Dark Pit from Kid Icarus, Little Mac from Punch-Out, Bowser Jr. from the Mario series, Robin and Lucina from Fire Emblem Awakening, Shulk from Xenoblade Chronicles,
I'm really feeling it!
the Duck Hunt dog, and even some new third-party characters like Pac-Man and... There's a lot of other things I could say about this game, but that alone could take up this entire video, so I'm just going to end on this note. Super Smash Bros. 4 is easily one of the best games this year, and might actually be my favorite game in the series at this point. Now if you're wondering which version I prefer, I'll just sum it up with this one phrase. The 3DS version is like the appetizer, and the Wii U version is the entree. Does that make Mewtwo the free dessert? I honestly never could have predicted this when 2014 started. Thanks to both Maximilian's videos and the influence of my friend Bolt of Shadow, I gained a large interest in fighting games this year. And I don't mean Smash Brothers. I'm talking about traditional 2D fighting games like Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, King of Fighters, Marvel vs. Capcom, BlazBlue, those kind of fighters. Believe me when I say there were a lot of fighters I could have put on this list, as I played quite a few for the first time this year. But instead, I'm just going to put my favorite fighting game I played in 2014 on this list, which would be none other than Capcom vs. SNK 2, Mark of the Millennium 2001. It may not seem like it at first, but there's a lot behind this game that makes it so great. For starters, how it treats the fighting system. Some of you might be wondering how it treats its system when it's a crossover between two very different fighting game companies. Well, it's one of those best of both worlds situations, thanks to the groove system. Simply put, the game gives you a choice of 6 grooves all based around different Capcom and SNK fighting games, and establishes your mechanics and meter through those grooves. For example, you can end up playing in the style of Street Fighter 3 with a single bar and parries, while your opponent could be playing in the style of Samurai Showdown or Garou Mark of the Wolves with a rage meter and just defense. And that's not the only love shown to these two companies. The game features a huge roster of classic characters from both Capcom and SNK fighting game franchises, like Street Fighter, Darkstalkers, Fatal Fury, King of Fighters, and more. Add on one of the best fighting game OSTs I've ever heard, and endgame super bosses with SNK levels of difficulty, and you've got one of the best fighting games that Capcom has ever made, and probably my all-time favorite 2D fighting game. So, who remembers my E3 2014 countdown? To those who do, who remembers what number 1 was? To those who don't remember, in my E3 2014 countdown, my number 1 belonged to the Tecmo Koei and Nintendo crossover project, Hyrule Warriors. Yes, I did play Hyrule Warriors in 2014. And yes, it is a really awesome game. But believe it or not, it's not on this list. Why is that? Because I played a better Zelda game in 2014. Yes, you're seeing this right. I did, in fact, play The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker for the first time this year. And I'm not talking about specifically the HD version either. To be fair, I didn't really get into the Zelda series until I got Skyward Sword in 2011. And by then, finding a copy of Wind Waker would be near impossible. Thankfully, a friend of mine lent me his copy of Wind Waker after he got Wind Waker HD. And man, I'm glad he did. I found so much in this game to enjoy. The characters, the areas, the dungeons, the bosses, the music, and especially the beautiful cel-shaded art style. Say what you will about this change in art style, but I think it works extremely well for this game. In fact, quite a few of the big complaints with this game I never had an issue with. The other major one being the sailing. I actually enjoyed the sailing parts. Yeah, they were long, but it was a nice change of pace and kept that adventure vibe. Also, while Skyward Sword still has my favorite incarnation of Link, Wind Waker's Link, also known as Toon Link, is a close second for me. Toon Link was probably the first incarnation of Link to fully show off some character through his extremely vivid and cartoony expressions. Unfortunately, I was never able to finish Wind Waker since my friend went off to university and took his GameCube stuff with him. But now that I have a Wii U, you can bet I'll be getting Wind Waker HD the first chance I get. Now, let's talk about Sengoku Basara. If there's one word that can be used to describe Sengoku Basara Samurai Heroes, it's fun. This Dynasty Warriors-esque hack and slash is honestly one of the most entertaining games I have ever played, and it's pretty easy to see why. The game has a simple combat system, but because of this, combo possibilities are so complex that it can easily lead to some combo counts that even Capcom fighting games would be jealous of. I wonder why that is. Alongside this epic battle system is a wide range of playable characters, a majority of which provide their own insane way of enjoying the game. Not only that, but the game has some unique environments and some pretty good boss fights, with special mention going to bosses like Yoshiaki, Kenshin, Tenkai, and the final duel between Ieyasu and Mitsunari, which brings us to the story. The plot, which is loosely based off Japanese history, focuses on the conflict between the peace-seeking Ieyasu Tokugawa and the revenge-seeking Mitsunari Ishida. Both these characters make good protagonists, and the conflict between the two is quite intense to say the least. And you wanna know what's better than an epic hack and slash where you take down entire armies in a matter of seconds? An epic hack and slash where you take down entire armies in a matter of seconds with a friend! Sengoku Basara actually has co-op, which makes the game that much better. Yeah, the game is admittedly a button masher, but it's a fun button masher and definitely worth your time and money. Or you could just get its superior version, Sengoku Basara 3 Otage, if you're willing to import it from Japan. And you have the PS3 version. Why must the Wii have region lock? Yet again, I owe Austin one for something. During the Christmas season, several of us in the gaming family decided to spread the Christmas cheer around and give out some Steam gifts to our friends. And lo and behold, Bolt of Shadow ended up gifting me what now stands as not just one of the best games I played in 2014, but one of my all-time favorite games. And that game would be the indie masterpiece known as Dust in Elysian Tale. This freaking game! There is so much greatness in this single game, it's not even funny. So what exactly is Dust in Elysian Tale? Well, simply put, this is what would happen if you were to take a hack and slash, make it 2D, throw in some RPG elements, and give it Metroid-esque level design. In other words, an absolutely amazing combination. The combat in this game is multiple levels of satisfaction, especially the game's parry system, and the level design is severely well done, which goes well with the game's presentation. Oh yeah, the presentation. Simply put, the game's visuals are breathtaking. Say what you will about games like BioShock Infinite or The Last of Us for their wonderfully realistic look, but this beautifully created cartoon art style pleases my eyes much more. And then there's the music. Goodness, the music! I'm honestly trying to think of other adjectives of praise that I haven't used yet to help describe how great this music is. But it's not just the combat or the presentation that makes this game so great. The game's story and characters are actually very well written, with special mention going to the game's protagonists, Dust and Fidget. Also, I have to give kudos for taking such a cliche plot point and adding quite an interesting twist to it, namely Dust's case of amnesia. Honestly, this is one of those games that you actually have to play to know how astonishing it is. If I were to have one complaint with this game, it's that the boss fights are overall pretty meh. But even then, there's so few bosses in the game that's not even a major issue. If you have the money for it, you should buy Dust in Elysian Tale the first chance you get. Chances are, you will not be disappointed. Darn it, Austin! Why did you introduce me to so many good games this year? I'll fully admit that this choice is very predictable, but I 100% don't even care. I had only played one Fire Emblem game before 2014, and I never ended up finishing it because of the permadeath system. So I admittedly had no interest in Fire Emblem Awakening when it first came out in 2013. But after enough persuasion from Bolt of Shadow, I bought it in early February. And absolutely no regrets were made that day. There is so much to love about Awakening that elaborating on it probably would have taken up this entire video. But because I don't have that time, I'll just cover the basics on why this game is so awesome. For starters, there's the story. The plot centers on the Elysian Prince Chrom and his army of peacekeepers called the Shepherds, who recently recruited an amnesiac tactician, that being your avatar. But it's soon after this that the Shepherds begin to enter a full-scale war against the nations of Plegia and Valm, while an evil scheme to resurrect the fell dragon Grima begins to brew, and on top of all that, mysterious warriors begin to arrive from the future in order to help the Shepherds stop Grima's awakening. At least, that's the story in a nutshell. There's a lot more behind it, but I don't want to ruin all of it for you. Now let's talk about the gameplay. Awakening, like the other Fire Emblem games, is a strategy RPG, so battles play out like a board game, with you and your opponent taking turns in moving your units and battling opposing units. However, Awakening brings a few twists to the system, namely the ability to pair up. Before Awakening, your weaker units were essentially free fodder for your enemies, but now you can pair them up with other units, which can help with level grinding. But that's not all. As units continue to be paired up, they can unlock support conversations with each other, which helps unveil more about your units and make them feel more like humans. And then there's the S-rank supports. Basically, S-rank supports are when two units end up getting married. And even better, some units can have children that become playable units, and those units can have support conversations. Now we have the presentation and soundtrack. While the game doesn't look absolutely breathtaking in battle, it still looks really good for 3DS standards. But this is made up for in spades with some amazingly animated cutscenes. And then there's the music, which I honestly have no words for. It's one of the best OSTs I've ever heard in my entire life. But what makes Awakening stand out so much above all the other Fire Emblem titles, other than the fact that it saved the franchise from dying, is the inclusion of casual mode. You see, permadeath in the Fire Emblem series is widely considered to be the biggest turnoff for a lot of players. So Awakening provides the option of playing on casual mode, which removes permadeath from the game, while also including classic mode for older fans who want their traditional challenge. Thank you, Intelligent Systems! Honestly, I could elaborate much more on why this game is so amazing. There's very little I can complain about in this game, and to be quite honest, it's pretty much tied with Dissidia Duodecima as my all-time favorite game. Seriously, I can't decide which of the two games I prefer. So let me just end it on this note. There are a lot of games that are worthwhile on the 3DS, like Mario Kart 7, Kid Icarus Uprising, Triple Deluxe, Bravely Default, Super Smash Bros., the Gen 6 Pokemon games, and many others. But not only do I consider Awakening the best game on the 3DS, I would go so far to say that this game alone could be considered a system seller. I'm dead serious. And with the new Fire Emblem game being recently announced, I think it's safe to say that this series will be growing in my gaming library for quite some time now. I'm the One-Winged Angel, and to those wondering who my favorite units in Awakening are, well, that'll be talked about next time.